Hello everyone, I'm Marianne Cosgrove, Chair of Humanists Australia. Welcome to Humanists Australia's World Humanist Day Awards ceremony. Please keep your video off and your mic muted during this session unless you are speaking, and note that this session is being recorded. Before we begin this session, I wish to acknowledge that I live, work and play in Canberra on Ngunnawal and Ngambri land, and that sovereignty was never ceded. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and welcome any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here today. I recognise your continuing connection to culture and country. I will listen to your stories and try to understand your lived experiences. I will speak up when I see you suffering from injustice. I would like to introduce you to Dr. Heidi Nicol, CEO of Humanists Australia. She's coming to you from Melbourne, land of the Bunurong Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation. Heidi is now going to say a few words of welcome to the main event this evening.
Thanks, Marianne. I'm okay with people's videos being on as well, as long as you're not, I don't know, if you are doing a dance, that's okay. The interpretive dance in the background section. I think that with the video, we actually only see the person who's speaking at the time. So it's not too bad. So if you'd like your video on, I like to see all your happy smiley faces out there. So thank you, Marianne, for doing the acknowledgement of country and for welcoming us all today to this Humanist of the Year award event, online again because of the pandemic. But yes, I'm going to now formally welcome you all here to the 2021 Humanist of the Year Awards. So we choose to celebrate and recognise our award recipients on the 21st of June to mark World Humanist Day. It's also here in Australia, the winter solstice. I know that some of you will have events planned to follow on from the awards, and I'm very much looking forward to being on the other side of the pandemic, where those of us who are able to can meet in person again. And I'm certainly pleased myself to be marking the height of winter here in freezing Melbourne, and feel that we are all moving once again towards the hope of spring. Humanist International President Andrew Copson shared a few words about World Humanist Day on their website. And there's quite a bit about World Humanist Day over there on Humanist International if anyone wants to have a read through and some of the things that they're doing to mark World Humanist Day. But I really liked how he explained that World Humanist Day is an opportunity for humanists to publicise the common positive values that we hold. Values like human freedom, responsibility, free thinking, kindness, and creativity. It's also an opportunity to reflect on the long tradition of humanist ideas which have helped to shape our contemporary understanding of the humanist approach. And I think that those words could also be used so well to describe our own Southern Hemisphere tradition, which is, of course, that of acknowledging people who have done more than their fair share toward helping us all along the way towards improving human freedoms, responsibility, free thinking, kindness, and creativity in their own way. So the Australian Humanist movement has given an annual award or set of awards every year to people who have made outstanding contributions to life in Australia, consistent with humanist principles and values every year since 1983. So I'm very pleased today to be following along in this long-standing tradition and welcoming our three award winners for 2021. We have Professor Bruce Pascoe, Georgie Stone and Dr. Lyndon Storey, who are all with us today, and I'll be introducing each of them, and then they will all be talking for between 5 minutes and 15 minutes about their work, their activism, and their humanist values where that applies. So first of all, I would like to introduce Professor Bruce Pascoe, our Australian Humanist of the Year. And we had a little bit of a technical glitch, which I'm entirely to blame for with the certificate. So I'm going to show you Bruce's certificate. And Bruce may well have a version. Oh yes, looks like Bruce's. Oh, well done, Bruce, with the magic of technology. Georgie, have you got one? You can nod or no. Lyndon, let's see where Lyndon is. Oh, Lyndon does have one. All right, Lyndon, we'll do the magic of technology with yours when we get to yours. We can do that. It's going to be cool. Okay, so Bruce, Bruce Pascoe. Professor Bruce Pascoe is our Australian Humanist of the Year 2021. Professor Pascoe is well known as a writer of both adult and young adult literature. Bruce's best known work, Dark Emu, interrogates the assumption that Indigenous Australians were hunter-gatherers and cites evidence of pre-colonial architecture, engineering and building construction by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Dark Emu has won numerous awards, including the Children's Book Council of Australia Eve Powell Award and the New South Wales Premier's Book of the Year Award in 2016. In 2018, Bruce was awarded the Australia Council Award for Lifetime Achievement in Literature. Bruce lives on his farm in East Gippsland, Victoria, which is home to his latest project, Black Duck Foods. An Indigenous social enterprise, Black Duck Foods is committed to traditional food growing processes that care for country and return economic benefits directly to Indigenous people. Bruce's research has also inspired a number of projects at the University of Sydney, including the Indigenous Grasslands for Grain project, which works with Aboriginal people to bring the native grain production system to modern agro ecosystems and foods. This act of food sovereignty will provide environmental, cultural, and economic benefits. Bruce's work is a clear example of why we must learn from and engage with diverse knowledge systems in order to develop just and effective adaptation strategies in a changing climate. He has also recently joined the University of Melbourne as Melbourne Enterprise Professor in Indigenous Agriculture in the Faculty of Veterinary and Agricultural Sciences. This role sits within the School of Agriculture and Food and has been designed to build knowledge and understanding of Indigenous agriculture within the faculty and to grow engagement and research activities in the area. And I'm very pleased now to hand the microphone over to Professor Pascoe to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heidi. My name's Bruce Pascoe. I'm a Yuin Bunurong Tasmanian man, and I'm very proud to receive this award. Very sorry that my mother isn't alive, the greatest humanist I knew. But it does seem strange to receive the award simply for asserting the humanity of Aboriginal people. For a long time, Aboriginal people were considered not to be human. And the European invaders introduced all sorts of tests in an effort to prove that Aboriginal people were not of the same human race as the English. So it's a painful thing to have to do, but it's right up to this very day, it's necessary. We are still fighting this fight. There are still people who don't like to include Aboriginal people in the life of the nation, except as runners and footballers, and who like to diminish the culture and the civilization that Australian Aboriginal people had. You know, we had towns, we had fish traps, we had wells, we had dams, we had roads, we had clothing, all of these things. And not all people all the time, but if you live in warm climates, the need for clothes is reduced. If you live in a beautiful climate, you don't need a house. So not all people all the time used all of these things, but they were patently obvious to the first Europeans who arrived, and they wrote it down and declared the evidence of this. We're still struggling with that evidence today, apparently. I look forward to a day when we talk about it openly, without, vindictive comments, without trying to reduce the humanity of Australian Aboriginal people. So, it's a great pleasure to accept the award, but also it's a painful admission that this work has to be done at all. I'm looking forward to the next few years of archaeological research not because I need to know it, but because Australia needs to know it. And this new evidence will show large villages, the kind of villages that Charles Sturt saw, where there were houses capable of holding 30 or 40 people, most of them capable of holding 7 or 8. And in some places there were 70 of these. This is a township of over 1,000 people. It's far bigger than the one I live in at the moment. And this is something I thought that educators would want their children to know. So that's why I wrote Dark Emu. And I stand by the facts of Dark Emu because they're recorded by the great sages of Australian history, the explorers and pioneers. So I will continue to research these facts, and I will continue to bring them to Australians so that we can all share the great triumph and antiquity of this history. And I say triumph deliberately because in this country, for over 100,000 years, according to the latest Western science, Aboriginal people conducted a food gathering system. You could call it agriculture or horticulture. That was environmentally friendly, that survived 100,000 years. It has to be environmentally friendly. It has to be sustainable to do that. And they did that under a governance of the elders, which eschewed war. This is the only continent on Earth where war was not a natural part of the condition of man. And I think it needs examination. I think as a humanist society, we need to investigate the methodology of how a group of people understood the conundrum of being human and how to control it without the mechanism of war. And I know it's debatable. I'm looking forward to the debate, but I really want the debate. We have to talk about this. Otherwise, we'll be perpetually at arms. We'll be perpetually threatening each other with weapons that won't just destroy us, but have the potential to destroy the world. And I wrote a book for young children because I believe in the 8-year-olds of this world and their intelligence and their morality. Because I think if you spoke to any 8-year-old and said, do you want the world to continue? 100% would say, of course we do. Ask their parents and their parents will prevaricate. Unfortunately, we have all sorts of ways of justifying war. And I'd love to live in a world where there was none. So I'm proud to accept the Humanist of the Year award. And I look forward to a world where the ideas of the people who have won this award before are shared by more and more Australians and not seen as pie in the sky. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I'm on Yuin country, far south coast, New South Wales, Victorian border area, and it's a beautiful night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you, and congratulations again on your award. Moving on to Georgie Stone, our Young Australian Humanist of the Year. Georgie, your certificate will be winging its way to you. I like the, I'm liking the enthusiasm. I'm just going to admit somebody here. Okay, so our Young Australian Humanist of the Year. This honour is given to a person who has made an outstanding contribution to public life consistent with humanist principles and values. To be nominated for the award, the person must display a reasoned and compassionate approach to human affairs, have actively promoted humanist values, and be no more than 30 years of age. Georgie has absolutely done all of these things and more well before the age of 30. She is an Australian actress, she's a writer, and she's a transgender activist. At the age of 10, Georgie was the youngest person to receive hormone blockers in Australia, which set a precedent that eventually changed the law, which had previously compelled transgender children and their families to apply to the Family Court of Australia to access stage 1 of treatment. Georgie continues to advocate for transgender children, and as an actress on Neighbours, is one of the most visible transgender individuals in Australia. I am so pleased to welcome Georgie here tonight, and I'm going to pass the microphone over to Georgie, and congratulations once again on receiving this recognition as Young Australian Humanist of the Year.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. It's an absolute honour to be here tonight. It's an honour to be included amongst these winners. I'm inspired by both of you. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which I live on, the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and also acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. I would also like to acknowledge my trans, gender diverse and non-binary elders past and present. I stand on the back of the work that they have done, and I would most certainly not be here today without that work. So I am eternally grateful to them. It is an absolute honor to be receiving this award. It's quite surreal for me because I never planned on being an advocate. That was never something that I wanted for my life. That was never something that I wanted to do, but it's something that I had to do. So to give you a little bit of background about how I got into all of it, as mentioned, I'm transgender, I'm a trans woman, and I'm very proud to be a trans woman. And I've always known that in myself, but the sort of landscape that I grew up in, I was born in the year 2000, and when I was growing up, there really wasn't a lot of information out there about trans people, especially about trans kids, and about how to support trans kids. So my parents were very much in the dark when I told them that I was trans. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to support me. So I learnt and internalized at a very early age the impact that a lack of information and a lack of support can have on a young person, and how demoralizing that is. I grew up with the sort of representation that we had in TV shows and movies, the jokes that were made about trans people, the misinformation and stereotypes. It sent this message that there was something wrong with me, and that I couldn't possibly be loved. And that was a very, very heartbreaking thing to internalize and believe as a kid, that I don't deserve love and support. So that was the messaging that I grew up around. And I could see the impact that a lack of information and positive representation had in terms of my school, not knowing how to support me. I was forced to use the male toilets as a kid, which was really horrible and actually put me in danger. My doctors, my GPs, didn't know how to go about looking after a trans kid. A lot of people didn't even know the word transgender. So it was quite hard for me. So I had to, for my own well-being, I had to learn how to advocate for myself. I had to learn how to articulate the pain that I was feeling, to be able to get people to listen to me and help me. So that sort of out of necessity, I learned how to do that. And that's why at the age of 14, when I had the opportunity to start advocacy, my mum started a support group called Transcend, and through Transcend, Four Corners reached out to us to ask whether we would tell our story publicly, which we did. And from there, I had this opportunity to start advocating for trans young people. And I had an opportunity to tell my story, which I took because I realized that the privilege that I did have, having a family that supported me and having the skills to be able to articulate myself and tell my story, I realized that I had a responsibility to do so, and to help other people who weren't as fortunate as I was. So I have learnt through the experiences that I've had growing up and through the advocacy I've been doing since I was 14, how powerful storytelling is. And I believe that stories are one of the most powerful tools we have to agitate change and to reach out to people's empathy, and to change laws and to educate. And that has been, I mean, I was a teen, I'm 21 now. There are more resources at my disposal now, but at the beginning, all I had was my lived experience. So, and that was how I would get people to listen to me and educate themselves. So, storytelling has been, for most of my life, all I had to be able to look after myself. So, and now I've got a really supportive family and really supportive friends, and have met people through advocacy, and which has been really wonderful. So my advocacy has included pushing for law reform, so trans kids did not have to apply to the Family Court of Australia to access the medical treatment that they so desperately needed. I have been to Canberra a few times to lobby politicians to support trans rights. I have pushed for more support in schools so that trans kids can focus on their education and being safe at school. And that has included bathroom access and sports and using the correct pronouns, and teachers, being able to look out for these kids. And I've continued to tell my story, which has hopefully helped foster a little bit more understanding and empathy for trans people. And to be receiving this award for the advocacy that I have done, and to be 21 years old and to be receiving this award, it really means a lot to me, because as a kid, I had that messaging that I wasn't deserving of love and support, and that there was something wrong with me. And even though I know otherwise now, sometimes it's difficult, as when you've learned that as a kid, to unlearn that. And you might be able to know it in your brain, but you don't know it in your heart. So I'm still sort of having to unlearn that and know that there actually isn't anything wrong with me, and I'm deserving of love and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that receiving an award will fix all of that, but it is helping me learn my worth more, and to know that I've done some good, and that someone who started with no power or influence is able to change things, that means a lot to me, and it's helping me on that journey. So thank you all for listening to me. Oh, thank you. I'm getting a little bit emotional now. It means a lot to me, and just hearing everyone's stories is just, it's so inspiring. And I think recognizing people for the work they do is actually integral for allowing that work to continue. And with awards I've received in the past, that has created new connections and new relationships, so we can collaborate and continue that work. So yeah, this is really lovely. I'm going to stop talking now, but thank you so much for listening, and yeah, have a great night. Okay.
Thank you so much, Georgie. That was a absolutely brilliant, perfect, hit all of the marks in your thank you speech. So thank you so much for that. Moving on to our final award winner for 2021, I am extremely pleased to introduce Dr. Lyndon Storey, our Outstanding Humanist Achiever for 2021. So I have a fair bit to read on Lyndon, but it's all worth it, so bear with me. Lyndon's done a lot. So from the year 2000, the Outstanding Humanist Achiever, the OHA award, honours humanist activists who have made a substantial contribution to furthering humanism. In contrast to the Australian Humanist of the Year Award and the Young Australian Humanist of the Year Award, recipients are not necessarily well-known public figures. To be eligible for nomination, the nominee must have publicly demonstrated a rational and compassionate approach to human affairs in the service of Australian humanism. And Lyndon Storey has absolutely done this and more. So Dr. Storey has had a varied work career, including being a barrister in Melbourne, teaching a course on Western civilization at Liaoning University in China, and working for a mortgage brokerage firm in San Francisco. He has a PhD from Sydney University with a thesis on Mencius, and I might have to get Lyndon to tell, yeah, does that look, is that a reasonable, and and international relations theory. But his focus has always been on meaning and purpose in life more than furthering his career. Lyndon came to the humanist movement with a strong interest in humanism as a path to leading a fulfilling life, and his activities within the humanist movement have revolved around finding ways to live out humanism in daily life and building community. Lyndon spent several years as a voluntary humanist chaplain at Canberra Hospital, and has strongly encouraged other humanists to engage in chaplaincy or other forms of community work as humanists. He built a humanist meetup group that led to the creation of the ACT Humanist Society, a society that developed with a particular focus on community building. His Second Wave article, published when he was the president of the Council of Australian Humanist Societies, triggered thought and action around how to revitalise the Australian humanist movement, which we are so grateful for today at Humanists Australia. Lyndon has held leadership positions in the ACT Humanist Society and the Council of Australian Humanist Societies. And whilst he has campaigned on ideas about how humanism can provide hope for the world today, he has also recruited many people to the Australian humanist movement and has a history of championing them into leadership roles of their own, which I think our board chair, Marianne, may know something about. Lyndon's activities have been a driving force in establishing humanism in Australia and re-establishing this second wave that we are proud to be part of today. And he has established this as something far more than a reaction against religion, but rather as a source of hope in its own right for a more positive future for all living beings and for our planet. I am extremely pleased to welcome Lyndon Storey today, and we're going to do some technological magic. Are you ready for this? Okay, because I'm going to hand this certificate over to Lyndon.
And there it comes into my hands. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Lyndon.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Heidi, and thank you very much, Humanists Australia, for this award. It's a real honour and a really unexpected honour, and the honour has been made greater and more pleasurable by sharing the awards tonight with Bruce and Georgie, and I want to thank both of you for the beautiful talks you gave when you accepted your awards, and I apologise that my talk probably won't be quite as beautiful as both of yours were. With an award like this, it's given to an individual, but an award like this is individual activism is only really possible where there is an organisation with dedicated activists that individual can work with. So I want to say thank you to everyone I've worked with in the humanist movement over my time in it, and in a sense, shared this award with them. While the road has been bumpy and uneven, it has definitely been a road worth travelling. Why is the humanist road worth travelling? Humanism is both the most inspiring and the most evidence-based approach to life. We do indeed have within us the potential to love and to care for others and to build meaningful lives. The humanist message is that love comes from the human heart, not from an external God or ideology. Activating and realising as much as we can of our best potential and relying on our own human capacities, such as love, compassion and reason, to develop more fulfilling lives and better approaches to ethical living is the humanist path. The humanist path, though, is much more than a vision of how an individual can live out a good life. For humanism, self-realisation is as much social as individual. We cannot achieve a fulfilling form of realisation in isolation from others or in competition with others, but only by building better relations with others. From a humanist perspective, self-realisation is far more a social than an individualistic, self-centred process. Following from this, humanism generates a vision of how the world can be a better place, a vision of a world where all human beings everywhere can have an equal opportunity to realise fulfilling lives, and a world where human beings work to build better relations with other living beings and our environment. This vision of humanism as both a path to a good life for an individual and a positive vision of how we can build a better world has inspired my involvement in the Australian humanist movement. Today, however, humanism is far from the most prominent or popular approach to finding meaning in life. The most prominent other approaches, religion and nationalism, function not by calling upon the best within us, but by creating something external to us, an idol such as a god or a nation, and declaring that fealty to that idol is the best path to a meaningful life. The needs of the idol, whether it be God or a nation, are too often placed higher than the dignity of individual human beings. Now, there are many people who are positively inspired by religion and or nationalism, but too often such approaches have led to people using the defence of those idols, whether religious or national, to justify exploitation, cruelty and warfare. Whether it is warfare of nations or of religions, both are unjustifiable denials of our common humanity and have caused far too much needless suffering. As many people respond to the crises of our times by turning to national and other ideologies, the risk of these dangers increases. It's more important than ever to offer the hopeful and humble humanist message that we can live with uncertainty and find our own human paths to love and meaning based on realising our own best human potential for love and compassion. The other strong alternative to a humanist outlook that we face today comes from economic neoliberalism, from the view that human fulfilment means no more than the perpetual acquisition of material wealth, and that policy should be crafted to maximise the freedom and power of those who accumulate the most of such wealth. This approach turns society into a competitive wasteland where the ideologies I criticised, such as religion and nationalism, can appear to offer more value-based alternatives. In fact, it is humanism which offers an alternative that is based on respecting and realising the best in humanity, rather than subordinating humanity to ideological requirements which divide us and lead to conflict. Humanism does not operate in a vacuum, but in opposition to the sort of ideologies I have discussed, ideologies which plunge us deeper into conflict and crisis. The world desperately needs a more articulate and wholehearted presentation of humanism as our possible path forward. The alternative is not nothing. The alternative is the self-destructive slide into exploitation of the other, conflict and warfare that the other ideologies I have discussed risk. We need to try to head off these looming crises by working for a future based on a humanist-inspired vision of equal dignity and respect for all, and a global political system which offers everyone everywhere an equal chance at a meaningful and fulfilling life. That is why I've spent years trying to help others build the humanist movement and trying to push its emphasis in the direction of humanism underpinning a fulfilling approach to life, ethics and politics. The future is not a zone of guaranteed steady progress. Rather, it is a world where anything may happen, and we, the ones living in the present, are best placed to influence it. There is never a better time than right now to continue the struggle to build a world based on humanist ideals. And so, while I'm very happy and flattered to receive this award, there's no doubt in my mind that much more needs to be done and that I wished I could have done more. The greatest challenge is before us, not behind us. I ask everyone to join in meeting that challenge. I would say that if you look inside yourself, you will find the beginnings of love, sympathy and compassion that are part of our human social potential. These beginnings can be utilised to continue developing a process of self-realisation as a humanist committed to building a better world for everybody. I know everybody here has already undertaken some version of this process. I ask anyone listening to join in and let us all work together using whatever skills we each individually have to build that better world. Thank you very much for this award, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Lyndon. Again, that was an excellent acceptance speech. Thank you so much for contributing.
Heidi, may I break in for a moment? I would like to recognise that we have been joined by Stephen Stewart and Rosalind Ives, who are both previous recipients of the Outstanding Humanist Achiever Awards. Hi, Stephen and Rosalind. I would also like to mention that the today's award recipients are now available on the to view on the Humanist Australia website. If you go to humanistaustralia.org and look under Humans Award Recipients, you'll see them there.
Thanks, Marianne. I love that tab. Humans is what we're all about. And thank you to Marianne for doing that, doing such great work on the website overall, and to get the award recipients up in timely fashion. So it's 5:43 p.m. And I think this is drawing to a close. I just want to say an enormous thank you to everyone who has joined us tonight and to everyone who is watching or listening after the event. I'm so grateful to be here with you all in this new humanist organisation, Humanist Australia. And I look forward to the work that we will all do together to educate Australians about how humanism can be the framework that we all need to lead an ethical, meaningful and compassionate life, inspired by people such as Bruce, Georgie, Lyndon and our previous award winners, including Stephen and Ros, who've joined us today, and all of the other award winners. You are truly an inspiration, and we're so grateful for the work that you have done and the activism that you do. So I just want to say thank you once again to our award winners and to everyone who has joined us. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the winter. And of course, I hope you enjoy the coming spring.